Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Both Sides Now. Continuing on with our media personalities, this week we have Paddy Gower. So welcome Paddy to the show.
Yeah, awesome to be here. Big fan actually. Yeah.
Awesome. You followed us from early on.
Yes, I was one of the early adopters, so I was one of the first in there. Yeah.
So we're going to start off by kind of wanting to get your thoughts on what you think of the media landscape in New Zealand and how it sort of contributes to polarisation that we see here.
Yeah, I mean the media landscape in New Zealand is something I've been part of for 25 years. 25 years now. I started as a student journalist on university student papers 25 years ago. So I guess it's a landscape that I know my way around a little bit because I've lived and breathed it. How does it contribute to polarisation? That's a really good question. Polarisation is something that in the 25 years I've seen that I've been working in the media in this country change completely. It wasn't actually something that I really thought about when I first started, and we didn't see a lot of it. But remember when I started, there was literally no internet. like the internet was not even a thing when I began in journalism. So I've seen the whole thing develop really in front of my eyes, and with that, increasing polarisation over those 25 years as well. So and a lot of that due, despite the massive advancements that we've had in the media, including the ability to do stuff like we're doing right now, which is absolutely epic, by the way. We've had the internet has caused a lot of the polarisation, and if we talk about polarisation in the media, to my mind, we're really talking about what social media does to it, rather than the actual traditional media that I'm part of. The traditional media that I'm part of, and I'm kind of proudly part of, I guess. To my mind, we don't cause polarisation, we stop it. And I know as a journalist myself, I'm not out to cause polarisation, I'm out to stop it. That's the driving force actually in my work and in my life.
So you're proud to be a journalist in New Zealand then, compared to somewhere like the States where possibly the media is contributing to polarisation?
Spent a lot of time in the States, covered 3 elections there, been to about 40 of the American states in that time. Pretty lucky to have done that, have actually lived there. That's something that I'd like to do. The States, United Kingdom, Australia even, you'll see a lot more journalists that wear their colours on their sleeves, or or in America, you turn on the TV, watch Fox, there's a very distinct political view coming through, switch over to MSNBC, you see another sort of talking about the same story, you see another sort of view come through, switch over again, even watching something like CNN, which is pretty independent, certain sort of views start to come through as well. In New Zealand we don't really have that, never have, probably never will. Pretty simple reason for that, small market, you're not really going to thrive here if you adhere to one kind of political mantra or one way of being. That's facts. Some people will. We know how some of our broadcasters vote in this country, and they'll stick in some places, but overall very difficult for just kind of not really a media answer, but just a market economics answer, is that if you really want to get a mass audience in this country, the mass audience you're looking at is pretty small, and if you decide to be right or left, you're not going to really get there. And for me personally, I don't actually really have a kind of political colour. I don't. So, I'm a journo. So.
I mean, you're right that some New Zealand broadcasters do wear their political colours on their sleeve. Why don't you? Is it because you don't have a strong affinity, or it's because you're trying to maintain some sort of journalistic integrity around, revealing your own biases?
Good question, Finn. Really good question. And the answer is, it's because of my journalistic integrity. I'm a journalist. It is the only job that I've ever done. I take it really, really seriously. My independence is a massive part of what I do. It's a part of my overall journalistic mana, and for me, it's everything. And that's the type of journalist that I started as. It's one, and I spent a lot of time reflecting on my practice and stuff like that, and independence is a massive kind of part of me. The second part of your question is good though, because I actually, obviously, I'm interested in politics, I'm interested in the way that we do stuff, and I've got a whole lot of opinions about different things and stuff as well. And there's a sort of a second aspect to my independence, and having been in worked in politics for 10 years in Parliament itself, I know a lot about it. And there's a sort of, your question's good, because when I sort of look at it and neither side's got the answers. Some sides have got good answers, both sides have got good answers, they also haven't got all the answers either, so there's a sort of a bit of an aspect of that as well, that sort of over time, I guess my political views are kind of sort of apolitical. I'm sort of just like, no one really knows. It doesn't really kind of, this is just my own political philosophy, is that I kind of have no philosophy. How can the best answers come out of one place? Like, surely, this is my own sort of view that's kind of developed. Surely the best answers, the red guys have got some good answers, the blue guys have got some good answers, green guys have got some good answers, yellow guys have got some good answers on certain things. I prefer to go that one, put all of the good ones over in here, and then all of their crap answers, because we know that all the green guys have got some crap, the green guys have got some crap ideas, yellow guys have got some crap ideas. Take all of the crap answers, put them over here, and New Zealand would be pretty sweet as.
So do you still vote?
I actually don't vote. I haven't voted for quite a long time. The reason for that was, when I first started out as a political reporter, I was just like, you know what, I want to be really, really independent. Here I just want, and I was sort of in my 20s at the time, and I was just like, you know what, I just want to be super independent, and I'm just not actually even going to cast a vote in this election. And I'm going to be the most pure journo there is, you know what I mean? And then I sort of carried on that tradition, and I've carried it on each election, because I've always sort of either been working in politics or moderating the debate or something like that. And so I've carried on with that. It's an interesting one. I think it's equally just as valid for independent journalists to vote and cast their vote, and that's actually fantastic, because everybody in a democracy should really vote, and then divorce themselves from that opinion and come back and be completely independent. And journalists do that. Journalists I know do that, and that is, and 100% they can do it, and that's definitely a thing. For me, I kind of decided not to, and it doesn't make me any more or less independent than them. That's just kind of a tradition that I kind of started, and I've stuck with. Yeah.
So do you think it's anti-democratic for you not to vote yet?
Well, that's the kind of weakness of my position, really. And that's what some of my colleagues would say, is just like, hey man, because if you take it even a step further, you could not vote and still be a biased journalist to one side, because it's actually, whether the bias comes out as a journo, it's kind of up to you and your professional kind of abilities to go, I am going to put my thoughts on this issue to one side and take it out. That's what it's about. That's what a professional, ethical journalist can do. And it doesn't matter whether you voted for them or not, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's right. But I definitely do not think I am anti-democratic.
Yeah. Do you think it's easier said than done to to be truly independent? Because that's what
it's massively hard, because it's just unconscious bias and stuff like that, isn't it? It's just like, of course it's really hard to divorce yourself from the things that are inside your heart and your mind, because that's where your politics come from. They come from your values and your heart and your mind. And when you're doing interviews and different things, it is very hard to be, you've effectively got to be quite mercenary about it sometimes. And for a long time, when I was a younger journalist, I was a mercenary. I would just chase stories the hardest I could, and I really did not care about politics. and that is actually not a bad way of keeping you quite independent, because you're literally like a mercenary. You are like, just tell me which way to fight and I'll start fighting there, and then when the thing goes the other way, I will just start fighting over there. And in a weird kind of way, even though it's not the most overly reflective way of practicing journalism, and I wasn't the most overly reflective journalism for a lot of time in my 20s and 30s, I was a warrior, and that's how I viewed myself. I was a warrior in a kill or be killed environment, and politicians were effectively the enemy, and it didn't really matter what colour they were, you know. And it sounds really, you know, sort of like, you know, I've already sort of started being a bit anti-democratic earlier, and now you're like, where's this going? But this is the life that I've led and the journalism that I've done. And weirdly, it did make me really independent, because I was just, you know, I didn't actually see colours or philosophies or things like that, you know. And I've shifted away from that now, and, you know, I do care about different things, and I try and do journalism that brings up issues that we're facing in New Zealand and this kind of stuff. And, you know, that does, and I do have opinions on it as well, and they do lead you into that sort of space of pushing things and having opinions, and you know, sometimes those opinions match what politicians have or whatever. But for me, they still come, those opinions still come from doing the research in an independent and apolitical, ethical journalism kind of way. And, you know, but I just kind of give my reckons at the end of it. So, yeah, you know, it is difficult for people to keep those sort of political opinions out, but if you make the decision to do that, and people do that not just in journalism but all sorts of professions, people have to do things, you know, like the classic example is a defence lawyer who defends someone who is not a nice person, but their values are just like, no, I signed up to this to give, you know, to be an adversary in the legal system, and this is the way that it works. So it's kind of like that, really.
Yeah.
You know.
So New Zealand's got a lot of big issues. You've been pointing a bunch of them out. Is there one that you think you just wouldn't be able to sit on the sidelines for, and you'd have to vote? You'd be like, this is just too big. I need to have my democratic voice, and I've got to vote on this.
Yeah, and if things came up, you know, I would. And you know, a classic example of that is for me personally, is the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I completely came off the fence on that. I was pro people getting the vaccine. I was happy to present the Vaxathon and actually try and get more people vaccinated. I was just sitting there watching the community that I live in the Hutt Valley, and people out working hard to give the vaccine, and doctors and nurses, and all of the expert advice, and I just knew that the right thing for New Zealand to do was to have maximum uptake of the vaccine, and you know, just really put myself out there and actually pretty much told people that, you know, they should get vaccinated, and use my personal use my personal platform to do that. So, you know, all the time I'll sort of come out and do that, and then, you know, there are other things that, you know, I mean,
politically unpopular ones, any examples of those where you've been like, oh man, this isn't going to go well with a certain voter demographic, but I just really feel like I've got to say something?
Yeah, well, you know, I feel, you know, with the kind of journalism that I'm doing, you know, I've spent the last 5 or 6 years working in the field of drug reform, and that's not popular. You know, talking about a health approach to methamphetamine, that's not popular. No one's talking about that at the moment. They're talking about locking people up, and the debate about methamphetamine is very low. So, I'm quite happy to talk about stuff that's not, you know, that's not mainstream or super popular or things like that. You know, and drug reform is one area. Drug law reform is one area where, you know, I've devoted a lot of my professional time and life into, and I never ever thought that would be something that I was into. You know, I actually didn't really give two hoots about drug reform when I was your guys' age, and then, you know, now I look at myself and I'm like, what happened to you, bro?
Do you reckon you've managed to shift the dial on the work you've done with drug reform?
Yeah, I do. Because I know that people talk about it, and I know that it gave a voice, and it has given a voice to people with addiction. I know that my works help give a voice to people who've got problems with alcohol, and that if you want to talk about pushing something uphill, talk about dealing with alcohol in New Zealand. That is something where I'm on the wrong side of the ledger. Believe you me, this is a country that is awash with booze. So and that's a cool part of it, shifting the dial, and making people think and talk about it. It doesn't matter for me if my job's not to change laws or make things completely different. I view my job as to raise things and create discussion, make New Zealanders think about stuff. They don't even have to agree with me, to be honest. As far as I'm concerned, they can disagree with me, but at least if we're having the conversation about some of these big things, that's awesome. Yeah, so that's part of my vibe.
So we've got a lot of big issues. What's the greatest challenge New Zealand's facing at the moment?
The greatest challenge that New Zealand is facing is
right now.
Right now?
Yeah. The
economy, and the way that the economy is hurting all of us, at the moment. The way that, our economy is preventing people from being able to go out and buy stuff. Right now, today, as we speak in the here and now, that's our number one problem is the cost of living, in my view. That affects everybody in all sorts of different ways. It doesn't matter whether you're a poor person that can't afford to put kai on the table, or if you're the big wig in a building like this that's going, hey, why is no money coming into this place, and what are we going to do to keep it running? That is what is affecting us right in the here and in the here and now in Aotearoa, New Zealand. But there's we could talk all day, but that's what's affecting us right now.
I'll play devil's advocate here, in that. Yeah, we've got an economic downturn going on at the moment, but we're actually the wealthiest we've ever been at any point in human history. We've got the most resources and finances available to every person. Do you think, the economy always pops up as the biggest issue every 4 or 8 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do you think we're prioritising that now ahead of some of these big long-term systemic issues like climate change?
Yeah, you have to, and the answer to your question is, for me, is you're 100% right. And I always, think, hey, why can't we do a few things at once? Yes, of course the economy is the here and now, but yeah, hey, there is big stuff like climate change. Then there's all this other stuff that, I get really frustrated when people are like, hey, this is a cost of living election, or this is and we sort of make this arbitrary decision that the country can't focus or deal with other stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like we can only deal with one thing, and we can't. There's no time to have a conversation about drug reform, or what we do about alcohol in New Zealand, or whether we should become a republic, or all of these sorts of things. Do you know what I mean? Because we're just going to, some people did a poll and it said cost of living, health, law and order, and we're just going to spend all of our time talking about this, because we can't possibly use these brains we've got, as you've quite rightly pointed out, Finn, in the most sophisticated, economically wealthy time that we've ever been like. We can't think about other stuff right now. We've got to shut all of that off. So while my answer's still right, that's what we're dealing with, the economy. But we've got an existential crisis around climate change coming at us faster than anybody's ever thinking. Every time you look and read about it, it's coming quicker than it was before. Yet for some reason, things like this go off to some sort of back burner that, who even decides why they're going on the back burner, or why we have a back burner? So.
Do you think that's down to, because obviously the media have quite a lot of control over what people care about. Do you think that's down to you guys, or do you think that's the politicians, or?
It's partly down to us. it's partly down to the media, it's partly down to politicians, partly down to people and their priorities themselves. It's always a sort of, you can't go out, we can't walk out of here right now and go, okay, right, we're going to shove some climate change medicine down the throats of Kiwis. We're going to go and take over the news desk, and we are going to run climate change stories on the news every night until the election. We're going to hold the reporters to hostage, and we'll go and do it. And we're going to let Kiwis know at the end of it that that's what we did, and it'll be a climate change election. Do you know what I mean? You can't kind of lead, as much as you want to, or as much as people might want to, they actually can't. Part of it comes down to people themselves, but we all feed into that. It's the public sphere. Politicians feed into it. You guys feed into it. What's happening there? The overall vibe does. So yes, the media is partly to blame for the stuff that we focus on. Politicians are partly to blame for it as well, and in all honesty, kind of people are sometimes as well. You're saying to me, what's the number one issue facing us today? We would not have to walk far for people to go, I'm over the election already, and it's only been going for 2 or 3 days. So, well, hang on, how can you be? Yeah.
So you alluded to the fact that you think political parties are often putting out what they think is polling right? But you guys are in the business of selling news. How do you balance that decision on the news desk between, man, this is a story that's going to sell, and this is actually a story that people want to hear?
Yeah, and that's a really important part of the kind of work that you do, because, if we did stuff that, so we just talked before about a climate change only news bulletin. If we did stuff about the Kardashians or shark attacks or something all the time as well that we thought was what people want, I think people would grow tired of that pretty quickly as well. So there is a certain element of news science, if you like, of people do really want to have news where they learn some stuff. It's not as bad as people just wanting to be spoon-fed a lot of junk, you know what I mean? And I've definitely found that myself with the documentary work that I've done.
Higher engagement than you expected.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Sort of pieces,
People do want it. There is a demand for it where people are actually like, yes, I do want to sit down and watch something that makes me think. So all is not lost, I guess, and that comes in as part of it as well. Who have we got to sort of thank for that? We've kind of got ourselves. We are, despite all of the sort of these forces that are just coming in, actually human beings, we sort of do kind of have a bit of a self-regulating check on ourselves that kind of keeps society from descending into sort of Shark Attack Kardashian sort of junk,
I mean, you'd hope so, but are you on TikTok?
Yeah, I am on TikTok, and it does, I would.
How worried does that make the state of journalism and news? Because I've got a lot of friends who are getting most of their news from TikTok.
Totally. And what worries me about TikTok is, and it should worry everybody, is what my own algorithm sends to me and shows me about me. I don't even want to. It's worse than the Kardashians and TikTok. Do you know what I mean? Because you start watching something and everyone knows, they start giving you more, and then you're like, why are you giving? Oh, I know why you're giving me. I know why I'm watching. Hard trance in Ibiza. Do you know what I mean? I didn't even realise that I liked that. And that's the funny side of it, but the bad side of it is when your algorithm starts feeding you all sorts of stuff, and starts feeding someone all sorts of stuff, and I've done a lot of work in this. It scares the living bejesus out of me what these algorithms are doing to us, and the control that they have over people, and the control over what we're seeing. So we're shifting now from we've got a traditional news organisation here where people come in and they make decisions on what's going to be good, what's going to get ratings, what's important, and stuff like that. And that's got a lot of flaws in it as well. But shifting to the algorithm, which is doing that job for us at a higher speed directly to people, that is actually really, really scary. And, to go back to, I started when there was no internet in in this job, whatever. I've seen it all kind of happen. And, you know, I remember in the early days, Facebook, and long before people talked about this kind of stuff, 1080. And I started doing some work on 1080 and spent some time on Facebook. And, you know, I remember sitting there one day going, this kind of disinformation about 1080, this is really dangerous, what these people are watching on Facebook and reading. This is long before we had things like March 15 and all of this kind of stuff. You know, I vividly remember sitting there and thinking to myself, you know, if someone just watches sort of this stuff all the time, this is before we were even talking about it. I'm not saying I was some sort of genius or anything, right? But, you know, I can sort of just remember the moment and going, you know, this Facebook sort of thing could be really, really sort of dangerous for people who could just sort of twist their minds a bit. You know, fast forward 2, 3, 4 years later, or whenever it was, and we've got the vaccine and all of this sort of stuff, and all of this went into hyperdrive. And, you know, that's what, you know, and you want to talk about challenges that we're facing today that are bigger than the economy. The algorithm cooking the brains, literally cooking the brains of all of us, including our young people who are going to know nothing else. That is an existential challenge to human society akin to climate change, in my personal view. The actual algorithms that we are dealing with every day, you know, is another massive challenge.
So is that on the cards for Paddy Gower has issues or for the longer series?
Yeah, no, totally. And, you know, I mean, I've already sort of delved into it a bit with March 15 and the rise of hate that caused that. And that was something that I worked on before the vaccine came along. And it was something that was frightening me then. And, you know, that's something I've marched in the street for, to actually turn the algorithms off or something, or regulate the algorithms or something like that. You know, like these things have been dangerous.
It's pretty crazy. Like there's a couple of sort of analogies. My granddad often uses the one plastic. Like we've got this massive global plastic crisis. Plastic's actually relatively recent in the 60s. Before there was no plastic and we were completely fine. Everyone was, you know, everyone was living their lives. All of a sudden we've got this massive plastic crisis. Then there's the internet. You know, everyone was fine before the internet, going about their lives. Then we've got the internet, and now it feels like so much of our demographic, and, you know, particularly or younger than us, school kids, they're spending like 4 hours a day on reels, and this has just happened the last couple of years. It's overnight, and it has gone relatively unnoticed. And I guess it's something that's hard to get some data behind, and hard to give a solution other than banning, you know, doing what China's done and just banning them.
Yeah, 2 hours a day or something in China, you know, and this is a good conversation, because you do sort of have that, and I like what your grandfather's saying, because you sort of do have that vision of people sort of 50 to 100 years in the future, kind of looking back on this generation and going, what the hell were they doing? You know, what were they doing, you know, like that? And then, you know, they let their kids do that just all day, and, you know, you know, you can sort of see this, sort of see people looking back on us as, is it sort of an element of human stupidity that we're involved in?
Do you think that it'll sort of solve itself, or do you think it'll take sort of a kind of crisis or some sort of thing to sort of, you know, wake people up about it?
Well, what we are seeing about human society, this is a very intellectual conversation, isn't it? I'm like, whoa, this is, you know, we're not actually that good at dealing with crises, in my view. You know, like if we look at what's happening with climate change, like humans are not that good at getting too far, you know, and it kind of weaves all the way back to the answer about the economy. It's like we are not that good at getting out of our own bubbles. So, big questions, but I didn't realise we were going to try and solve those problems today.
So, exciting next month ahead with the election, and you've got a leaders debate. Tell us a bit around what goes behind the scenes there in terms of you guys getting the leaders debate, and what sort of questions you know you got to come up with. Do you go to the public, or how do you build those questions around the debate?
Yeah, the leaders debates are you know, they're really important for elections still. And one of the reasons is, you know, in my view, is they're still quite a pure environment for the leaders to be in. You know, for 90 minutes, there's no social media, there's no advisors, there's actually nothing but campaigns and stuff that kind of stand the test of time, in that they'll be the only time that a lot of people who tune in to watch them actually really beam in on politics as well. So I think they've got a really important role in our political discourse. They've got a really important role in our political discourse, and letting the leaders debate and talk and think is really important. So in terms of the preparation that I'm putting in, this is the third time that I've done a leaders debate. They are the hardest job that I've ever done, by far. They are hard. I have to get to another level to do them, and I do work hard to get to another level. I take it really seriously. It's really important to be independent. It's really important to be able to test the leaders and give them good topics. It's really important to stay out of it and let them debate as well. So it's a really complicated kind of professional job for me as the moderator, because you're not an interviewer, you're a moderator, but you also just can't sit there and let them start waffling. So you do have to get in there. So it's like, okay, this is pretty tricky. So it's a kind of a role like no other for me personally. And in terms of, and I like to, not just put up topics. I don't like to say, let's talk about the cost of living and hear about everything that they've said already. When we go into cost of living, I like to bring it up in ways that literally makes their brains work. I like to put them there in a way where they have to think, and in a debate environment they have to debate, and people at home can start to see them think and talk outside of their talking points. That's the simple goal. That means preparing, I should count them, but thousands of questions, and by questions I mean start a topic there, sort of map out where we think the leaders will go, map out counter questions, and so actually basically get inside their brains, analyse all of their public statements about something, and try and work out where they'll go and sort of map it out. And bearing in mind that you might map out a part of the debate, and then you might get there and run out of time to do that bit, and all of that work's left behind, or it might weave off in a different way, or what have you. So, long story short, massive amount of prep for a big job.
Do you do a practice debate?
Yep, every year. Yeah, we rope in a couple of people from around the newsroom, and
who's going to play the two Chris's?
Well, we had a chat about the two Chris's yesterday, and a couple of people were suggested who I thought would be too good, and I'd lose confidence. Like the All Blacks playing the Springboks before the World Cup, and I'd go in, and these guys would be so good as the Chris's that I'd sort of like walk out of there like a battered and bruised 30-something nil defeat. But I know, I don't want to drop too many prominent broadcasters in it, but Lisa Owen, who's a formidable interviewer, she played one of the leaders. I think she was either Bill English or Jacinda Ardern, and she was oh boy, and Lisette Raymer, who's our European correspondent. I don't know if she'll appreciate me saying this, but she was a very, very good Judith Collins. So I won't reveal the identities of these two Chris's until afterwards. Yeah.
Do you have any sort of thoughts before you go into the debate of how these two leaders will go?
Yeah, I mean, you spend a lot of time, and but you don't actually know what's going to happen until you get started. For instance, in the last debate, Judith Collins debated fantastically against Jacinda Ardern, and Jacinda Ardern also, it was a really, really lively debate. The election before that was Bill English and Jacinda Ardern, and, both of them just came out and really brought it. And, to be honest, there's not a lot of point in thinking about how they're going to go. It is a one-off event, and once that light goes on, it's a person-on-person debate. That's what makes it so good. Anyone can win it, anyone can have a good day. There's no sort of real point in me thinking about how they're going to go. The point of me is getting in there and getting it on, and being prepared to do it. So, and that's the beauty of them, is that anyone can come into those things and show New Zealand that they've got what it takes to lead the country.
Do you think at MMP we should be having multiple leaders debates?
Yes, I think it is a disgrace, a national disgrace, and an affront to Kiwi democracy that we do not have multi-leader debates featuring the two main leaders. I think we should have the leader on leader debate that we do have, because only one person can be Prime Minister, and I think Kiwis deserve to see those two options up against each other. But I think in a country where we've got MMP, and we know that once they get into Parliament they've got to work with the other parties, that the two main leaders and the other leaders who are either in Parliament or highly likely to get there should all debate together, and Kiwis should see them debate together. The reason why they don't is that the leaders of the National Party and the Labour Party have got together and set up a crooked little deal where they refuse to do a multi-party leaders debate.
Yeah, I just finished reading Stephen Joyce's book.
Yeah,
He actually talks about how they set up that deal for
That's
Key
right.
and Clark. Yeah.
Yes, it's in Stephen Joyce's book
Yeah.
that it got set up under Key and Clark, and they now get together in a cosy, and honestly I believe it is crooked in terms of our democracy. It lets down the voters and they refuse. I'm telling you right now, we would put one on. Television New Zealand would put one on as well. Anyone would be prepared to do it and put it out there. But until the cowardly, because that's what it is, they are cowardly leaders of the Labour and the National Party. It's not just the ones who are in now, it's the ones before them, and it'll be the ones after them. Believe you me, they will preserve this at any cost. Until they can be somehow forced or shamed into doing it, New Zealand voters are going to be let down, because it is ridiculous that we don't see the parties get together. This is MMP. They have to work together. The stuff that they're talking about has to either go with ACT and New Zealand First, or it has to go with Greens and the Māori Party. It's not just going to be the way that they want it. And I think, it's gutting. It is actually gutting that they won't do it. Yeah, could I be more?
Well, you could bring it up in a leaders debate. You could call it out on the big stage.
Well, that's the frustrating thing, is I have called it out before and stuff like that, and it's, you call it out and life moves on, and the politicians know about that, and the politicians know about that, and the other option is to do one where you had the minor party leaders and you had empty chairs, but it'd be a good stunt, but there's so much going on with the value of the TV time and stuff like that, and whether that would work as well, and the leaders sort of know that, and they exploit that. They sort of they know, nothing's really going to happen to us if we do this. Some intensely political people are going to find it gutting, but Joe Public's not going to care. And in the end, it just sort of shows you the nature, the venal nature of because they're in it for themselves. It's a classic example of them being in it for themselves and not for other people. And and I'm not being mean to them in that way, but it is an example of that. They are not actually going, we would like to have a really good democratic election where we debate with the others like the MMP does, so I am going to, out of the goodness of my heart, as leader of the Labour Party, talk to the National Party and say we should have this debate. They're just like, nah, bro, I don't really have one request. Let's request on our own, Yeah.
Do you think it's true of a lot of politicians, that they're in it for themselves versus being in it for people truly?
A lot of them, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because overall, a huge number of our politicians are in it to actually, they've got a really deep-seated belief that their way is better, and if they can get some control over the country, they can do some of the stuff that they believe is true. So that is there, but there is no question in my mind, like I was in there for 10 years, I've seen these guys up close. They might go in for good reasons, they might be there for good reasons, and if they're really honest with themselves, when they sit at home after they've left, they become pretty weird. And that's true, and they do become pretty venal, and and if they really wrote down a list of politicians who lead Parliament, if they wrote down a list of strange things I did while I was in Parliament, and I'm being honest here, and they started actually writing down some of the stuff that they did. Like, it would be a really, really odd list. And I say this as someone who worked in there and did a lot of strange things themselves. And, you know, frankly, I, you know, have been quite disgusted at some of the kind of skullduggery and different things that I got involved with in there in that kind of way, you know, and you know, I've reflected on that, and I've decided to come out and you know, sounds like a bit of a cliche, be a bit of a better person. But I do say that, you know, in all honesty, because people will be watching this going, well, he was one of the biggest skullduggery guys there was. You know, I rang him and told him XYZ on that day, and then he went and said XYZ, and did, you know, he was all part of, you know, so, you know, and I say that as someone who's been part of doing some pretty weird stuff that was all in the political game, and actually, when you...
What sort of weird stuff?
Oh, just when you're, you know, when you're taking information about leadership coups and stuff like that, when somebody is deliberately trying to destabilise the leader of a political movement through leaking stuff to the media. I've been part of that. Like, okay, that's part of what you do. You get leaks and you report, and instability of a leader is really important. But if you sort of take a wider look at it, and you sort of, you know, you're kind of hiding around the back of a car park or something, taking information on someone because someone wants to be the leader instead of that person, like, that's where it's pretty weird. And if you look at it, you know, you can look at it in isolation and go, yeah, that was weird to do that. And that's the kind of thing you do. You know, you can also look at it and go, that's political journalism. You know, getting the inside word on what the parties are actually doing and reporting that to the public is all part of it. It's going to happen if we're not there or whatever. But, you know, for me personally, it's just, I'd rather go out and make a documentary about climate change than do that. And, you know, I've done it.
Do you believe politicians when they say they've never leaked? Because another one will come out.
Is there a politician that has said they've never leaked?
Some of them come out and claim they've never leaked against the party. Do you reckon that?
Oh, some of them, you know, some of them, they might not actually have had the guts or the motivation to do it, you know, because you don't need, you know, but, you know, a lot of them have leaked, you know. I mean, I've been leaked to by you know, over 100, I guess, while I was there for 10 years. So, you know, some of them are too low level to leak, or they don't quite know how to do it, but I bet you they want to leak. And I bet you if they haven't leaked, I bet you they've told one of their colleagues that they're voting for them and something and voted for something else. I bet you they've all done that. Well, I mean, they just, you know, they do some wacky stuff. They do some wacky stuff. But they do some good stuff. You know, it's good. Yeah. Don't want to be too harsh on them.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I feel like a lot of people that I know who are voting feel pretty disenfranchised. They go, all four of the parties are pretty useless. I don't want to vote for any of them, or they're all just politicians. But I mean, the counter to that is we've got amazing access to our politicians in New Zealand, and they're all pretty good people. Where do you sort of sit on that spectrum of, I guess, general faith in our leaders? You know, like, is at the end of the day, David Seymour and James Shaw, are they going to be sort of just as good prime ministers as each other?
Yeah, totally. You know, there are a couple of, like, take all of the politics and stuff out of it. Actually, James Shaw and David Seymour are, you know, pretty damn good leaders and people who are fighting for their corner, you know what I mean? And they are devoting their lives to advancing that. One of them's, and they're both, you know, one of them's from a sort of libertarian sort of side of the right, and the other one's from the green side of the left, which are really sort of equal and valid political philosophies. So, you know, we're well served by people like that. You know, we've had fantastic prime ministers in this country for virtually all of my lifetime, who are great New Zealanders who put the country first. We've been incredibly lucky with our leadership, and, you know, our political system, it's open. We know what it's all about. You know, of course, it's got its flaws, and people can feel shut out and closed out by from time to time, but it corrects itself. We've got it pretty bloody good here. You know, when you sort of when you take the helicopter, the wider lens on the world, you know, and we're lucky for that, and we do need to, you know, sort of spend time kind of appreciating what we have.
So the leaders' debate is I guess, somewhat the North Star of a journalism career. Is that where to next? Is there have you got your dream job at the moment with Paddy Gower has issues? Is there an interview that you'd love to have, or a job, a role you'd love to have still?
Yeah, I mean, good question, Finn. Journalism's always been a dream job for me, right from when I began. Every sort of job I've had in it, I guess, has sort of been my dream job, and I've just sort of slightly changed. Even, I was being a bit harsh on the press gallery before. I loved that while I was in there. I really enjoyed it, and it left me with a lot of battle scars. But that's all good, So now there's no, doing the kind of mahi that I'm doing at the moment, like working on issues that are facing us as Kiwis and bringing them to light. I've got to be pretty honest. It is a dream. It's the dream of the dreams for Paddy G. And I'm lucky to be able to live my dream. And I'm one of those people that has got to do that in their lives. And as I said before, appreciation for that. I'm just going to kind of keep doing that as long as I can. In terms of a dream interview, I don't know. Everyone says Obama for some reason. Why do they do that? It was like dream interview, Obama. Who do you want to have dinner if you're going to have dinner with 5 people in the world? Obama. Like what's with it? Why doesn't no one say Trump and stuff like that? It's just dinner. You know what I mean? You're not marrying the guy. Yeah. So I don't know, but a dream interview. This is a weird one because it will require a kind of time machine or something. We don't have a time machine. You guys don't have a time machine, but I'd really like to interview my grandparents. They've all passed away now, but all of them were immigrants to New Zealand, from Ireland and from England, and I just reckon that would be the most awesome interview to understand why my grandparents came to New Zealand, to talk to them about it and to find out what their dreams were, if they just cared about what was in their bubble in front of them, or if they did have bigger dreams for what the generations after would do. That would be my dream interview. Might be one of those interviews where you're really excited about talking to your grandparents, and then you go and yarn to them about why they came to New Zealand. They're just like, I just came. Yeah. So they might not have these big, dreamy sort of answers that I hope for, but it would be a cool one to do. Yeah.
You talk quite a bit about, I guess, struggles facing journalism in the country. How optimistic are you for young journalists coming through?
For young journalists coming into the industry now, like when I came into it 25 years ago, man, I would recommend it to anyone. There's problems out there, and I could sit here for 24 hours and talk to you about the problems facing journalism and the media and stuff like that. But and I think that's a classic Kiwi problem, and I don't like it necessarily when it happens with the media, is that we can talk ourselves into a funk about stuff. I believe you've just got to be positive. I just told you before that I am living my dream in terms of journalism. Any young New Zealander could come into this absolutely awesome profession where you can be fulfilled every day and live a life of service and have adventures and meet new people and communicate with other people, use all of the amazing technology we have, use your head and your heart in the kind of work that you do, and whatever the problems and stuff are about journalism and the barriers, there are always going to be dumb bastards who want to do it anyway, and I'm one of them. So to all of those silly buggers out there that actually want to be a journalist and have a cool job and do some cool stuff and have some service and be independent and do all these things that people think can't be done or can't happen, it can happen. It needs to happen. I've done it, and there's going to be a whole lot more than me, and there's nothing special. I haven't got any gifts or anything like that. There's nothing great about me. I'm just a silly bugger who actually believes in the stuff that I do and has made a life out of it and a cool life. So yes, 100% happy for young journalists to keep coming into this great industry in this fantastic country.
Fantastic. Yeah, my partner's doing a master's in journalism at the moment, and
Brilliant.
her lectures seem like they're saying the exact opposite of that.
Right.
So it's good to have some optimism.
Yeah. I think it is. I mean, it is good to be cynical, and it is good to question things, and journalists and academics, and we're good at doing that. We're really good at doing that. We are good at tearing stuff down, right? And that's fine, and that's part of how it all works. But just every now and then, you just got to take a step back and go, okay, well, I can spend time thinking about all of that, and or I can just get out and do a yarn and bring a story to Kiwis, and I can just go and do it, and that's what's inside me, and I'm sure it's going to be inside your girlfriend and some of her friends and people like that as well. And it needs to be, because we need silly buggers like me in journalism. We need silly buggers like her in journalism. Like society needs it, just like we need silly buggers in Parliament. We just got to keep these things going. Yeah, because if we don't, it's the algorithm. And everybody knows.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Paddy, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. And I just did want to say that what the two of you are doing, the positive attitude you bring, is exactly what we need in this country. So you're sort of silly buggers as well. It's good that we're all sort of united in this mission.
Hey, we're going to finish with a quick speed round, if that's all good. And some of them are
Good
political,
luck.
so feel free to pass on any of them.
Don't want to look like.
I think he's up in trouble before the
Don't want to
debate.
get myself in trouble before the debate.
Who was New Zealand's best ever Prime Minister?
Oh yeah, well that's kind of unfair on people, but I kind of answered that earlier. Every Prime Minister in my adult life I rate as equal, okay? Helen Clark, John Key, Bill English, I haven't really had a chance to judge Jacinda Ardern, and then, haven't really had much of a chance to judge Chris Hipkins, but that's the people who've been around, and they are bloody good. So I'm going to give them equal favourites of my adult lifetime, and Hipkins is just sort of sitting outside there because I've got to kind of,
Still get your head around.
get my head around them. Yeah.
New Zealand's population, up, down, or stay the same?
Up.
How much by?
Okay. Double 10 mil.
Cool.
Yeah. There's lots of room in this country. Lots of room, and outside of the Auckland Isthmus, which we're on right now, there's lots of room up north. There's lots of room over on the east coast, the Hawke's Bay, down by Palmerston. Christchurch can grow. Dunedin can also grow, and Queenstown is growing and will grow quite big in my view over time. And we've got room for more people when we need more people.
New Zealand's COVID response, rank it on 1 to 10. 10
Okay, here's an answer. The start, 10. The end, 1. and a sliding scale in between. But something along those lines. I mean, it was bloody brilliant at the start, and by the end, what the hell was going on? So yeah, classic Kiwi, sort of brilliant, but crap. Yeah.
Should New Zealand become a republic?
Should New Zealand become a republic? Absolutely, and the sooner the better. I am a Republican. The fact that the Queen has died, I had a lot of respect for her, as everybody did, and now is the time for us to move on. I personally have got zero attachment to the royal family. This is a country where people from both our tangata whenua and immigrants from all around the world came to. We do not need to be looking back. We should have our own head of state, our own future, and our own destiny. And it is one of these issues where people just like, oh no, there's other stuff to talk about. And we can talk about becoming a republic, and we should be moving towards it right now. And I'm going to have a lot more to say about our need to become a republic in the months and years ahead of my life. It's something I believe absolutely needs to happen.
Should the world have nuclear weapons?
Wow. Well, the answer to that is no. But yeah, I do know that they've kind of stopped wars because
Have you seen Oppenheimer?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet. Yeah. I mean, it should.
Watch that before you get into the sort of suppression.
The suppression thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. So no.
Capital gains tax.
Well, I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer that ahead of the, because people will automatically think on your answer that you're on one side or the other, which is actually dumb. If you, do you know what I mean?
It is, yeah. Some issues should just be.
Yeah, because for some reason capital gains tax has become a left or a right thing, and actually, if you were to take a step back and say, what do you think about tax system, Paddy? And I said, well, it's absolutely ad hoc and crap. And it just makes no sense. Like, everybody would agree with that. So, yeah, a funny question that I can't answer, but...
We might come back to you after the election.
Yeah, well, it's like, it's just sad that we can't actually, that a tax has become politicised.
What about sugar tax or a plastic tax? Up for either of those?
Yeah, I mean, again, sugar tax, quite like the idea of it, I can't really see it, I don't want to kind of see it, I'm sort of translating it into whether it would work or not in our current environment. And a plastic tax, why aren't we exploring that more? And why don't we talk about a plastic tax more? When I look at stuff like what's the bloody garbage patch up in the Pacific? That's disgusting. That is disgusting that we've got this gigantic thing floating around. So plastic tax. I'm interested in taxing pollution. Full stop. So I'm also interested in these. So after someone who asks a lot of short fire questions and stuff like that, now I'm giving the longest answer.
No, well, we usually would hold you sort of to account in the leader style debate, but at the time.
So. But what about this? An algorithm tax. Algorithm, because the algorithms, if we think about it, are pollution.
Yeah.
In my mind, they are pollution. Okay, so that's just another one for other quick fire rounds, which I'm turning into the long fire round.
No, I'm on board with that. I mean, this is quick fire round, but philosophically, which is the opposite of quick fire round, I'm very much on board with. I'm sort of more neoliberal. But we're taxing the wrong stuff in society. We need to tax externalities. That's what you do in a free market. You tax externalities. And in New Zealand at the moment, we tax income, we tax wealth generation on everyday people. So let's tax all the bad stuff in society, the algorithms, carbon, nitrate, plastic, all the pollution that we don't want. Smoking, we sort of do that a little bit. Alcohol, we do it a little bit. But let's tax the bad stuff in society rather than the generation.
This is the coolest idea I've heard for a long time. This is good. Just goes to show why you should just let quick fire kind of flow. Like that's it as the debate moderator. Just let it flow. A good idea might come out.
Last one for me: compulsory te reo in schools.
Well, yes, I don't like the word compulsory, but because people kind of find that funny. But absolutely, we should be teaching it as part of the curriculum right from day one. There's more and more of it around. We need more teachers, etc., etc. But the reason for one of the many reasons why it's good is learning a language at an early age with the brain plasticity is a lot easier, and it actually unlocks the mind to other languages and other things. We would literally become a more intelligently powerful country by using a language which, by the way, is all around us and we kind of should be using anyway. So, yes. And call it compulsory or whatever, I'm not a politician. It's good. Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah.
Should we ban alcohol sponsorship of sports teams?
100% yes. 100%. Oh yeah, I'm not, quick fire. But I think it's ridiculous. I'm someone who is an alcoholic and does not drink alcohol. I'm someone who grew up, with Steinlager, on the All Blacks, literally on the jerseys of my heroes. I'm living walking proof why we should ban alcohol sponsorship of sports right here.
What's the better system, a parliamentary system in New Zealand or a constitutional republic like in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand. Yeah, it's quick fire. Our system is cool. Yeah, our system is cool. This is weird.
Fees, first year for university?
That was better, wasn't it? Fees for
No.
N-O to that. And if you do it, it needs to be in the last year, so you get a reward for finishing.
Yeah.
A reward for finishing, reward-driven behaviour. Yeah.
Should prisoners have the right to vote?
Yes. Like, so much more to worry about in a prison than whether it's selling drugs, stop them beating each other up, stop them using cell phones in there, teach them to read. Once we've done all of that stuff in the prison, then we can like decide whether or not once every 3 years we let a handful of them vote or not. Yeah. Another long answer.
Should MMP be lowered below 5%?
Yes, 3.5%.
Any reason?
Let's make it more interesting, let these people get in there. It's quite hard to get to 3.5. You know, we've had some pretty crappy results around 5%, and the whole reason we bought MMP in the beginning was to add proportionality and take out some of the perverse outcomes. It's 3.5% for me.
If you could give a knighthood to one New Zealander, who would it be?
A knighthood. I'm against knighthoods. I'm a Republican. I am a Republican. But you know, if I could give some sort of, you know, because we'll have to call it under some sort of honour. They don't even like, you know, so, well, yeah. But if I could give it, you know, to someone who doesn't have one at the moment, well, you know, well, what about Tama Iti? You know, there's a dude that people thought, half the country thought he was a blooming terrorist, and he wasn't. And he's a freedom fighter, and he's brought up, you know, just some really, you know, he's challenged my ideas of co-governance, is a word we haven't used before. So yeah, tell me.
Is calling Jacinda Cindy derogatory?
Yes, 100%. It's awful. It's not a name that she uses herself, and you know, when you see it used, it's used in a gendered way. It's disgusting.
Should there be diversity quotas in Parliament?
No. Parliament's getting pretty good. Yeah, but no, I'm not big believer in diversity quotas.
And finally, lowering the voting age to 16, yes or no?
Yeah, that is one of the most interesting questions for us. You know, I've got to say I've always been no, but I reckon I could be persuaded on that. You know, if I sat down and really had a look and a think about the voting age, you know, it's kind of weird that we, you know, it's sort of put back like it's dangerous. Like other stuff that's at 18 is dangerous. Voting is not dangerous to you. Voting can empower you. So, long answer to say, maybe.
Thanks so much for your time.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Shall we? How are we going to end it? Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.